Next topic, that is separation of insoluble solid from a liquid. कि जो insoluble substance है, जो solid substance जो insoluble होते हैं उसको हम लोग liquid में से कैसे separate करेंगे. They are the methods are sedimentation and decantation, loading, filtration. These are the different methods in which the insoluble liquids can be separated from a solid substance. So that detail we will study in the video.
Sedimentation and decantation. Insoluble substances that are heavier than liquid can be separated by sedimentation and decantation. Let us do the following activity to understand this process. Activity 3. To separate a mixture of sand and water by sedimentation and decantation. Things needed: 2 beakers, some water, some sand, glass rod. Method: take a mixture of sand and water in a beaker. Allow the mixture to stand undisturbed for some time. On doing so, you observe that the heavier sand particles settle down at the bottom of the beaker. This layer of sand is called sediment. When the sand settles down, or we say sediment is formed, clear water is left above the layer of sand. This process is called sedimentation. Pour the clear water into another beaker gently with the help of a glass rod, without disturbing the sediment of sand. This process is called decantation. When all the clear water has been poured out, only sand is left at the bottom of the beaker. Conclusion: in this way, a mixture of sand and water can be separated into sand and clear water, first by sedimentation and then by decantation. The process of settling down of heavier, insoluble particles at the bottom of a liquid is called sedimentation. The heavier, insoluble particles that settle down at the bottom of the liquid are called sediments. The process of pouring out a clear liquid from a vessel after sedimentation without disturbing the sediment, heavy, insoluble, settled particles, is called decantation. The liquids that do not mix with each other and form separate layers are called immiscible liquids. Kerosene oil and water are immiscible liquids. Filtration. We have seen earlier that to separate used tea leaves from tea, we pour the prepared tea through the tea strainer. The tea strainer has a wire mesh in it that acts as a filter. The liquid tea passes through the small holes of the tea strainer and collects in the cup below. The used tea leaves, being bigger in size, do not pass through the tea strainer and are left on the tea strainer. This process is called filtration. The process of separating insoluble substances from a liquid using a filter is called filtration. The tea strainer cannot be used to separate mud from water. The particles of mud are too small and will pass through the holes along with water. For this, we need a fine filter such as a filter paper. A filter paper is a piece of special paper that has millions of tiny holes in it. The holes of a filter paper are so small that they cannot be seen with the naked eyes, but can be seen only through a microscope. Activity 4. To separate a mixture of mud and water by filtration. Things needed: muddy water, filter paper, glass rod, iron stand, funnel, 2 beakers. Method: take some muddy water in a beaker. Now, take a circular piece of filter paper and fold it twice as shown in the figure. Open it out to make a cone. Place this filter paper cone in a funnel. Now, clamp the funnel containing the filter paper on an iron stand. Keep an empty beaker below the funnel. Pour the muddy water slowly into the cone using a glass rod. The clear water passes through the filter paper and collects in the beaker kept below the funnel. The clear liquid obtained is called filtrate. Take out the filter paper cone and open it out. Mud particles can be seen on the filter paper. This is called residue. Conclusion: the mud particles, being bigger in size, cannot pass through the filter paper and remain behind on the filter paper. In this way, mud and water can be separated from the mixture by the process of filtration. Uses in everyday life. The process of filtration is commonly used in our everyday life. For example, fruits and vegetable juices are usually filtered before drinking to separate the seeds and the solid particles of pulp. For making paneer, cheese, a few drops of lemon juice are added to the milk as it boils. This gives a mixture that consists of particles of solid paneer and a liquid. The paneer is then separated from the liquid through a fine filtering cloth or a strainer. The tap water that we get from the waterworks can be made absolutely safe for drinking by using an electric water filter. Separation of soluble solids from a mixture. Evaporation. This method is used to obtain a solid substance that has dissolved in a liquid. Common salt dissolved in water can be separated by the process of evaporation. The process is based on the fact that liquids vaporize easily on heating, whereas solids do not. The process of changing of a liquid into its vapor by heating is called evaporation. Seawater contains a lot of salts. The process of evaporation is used on a large scale to obtain salts from the seawater. Seawater is trapped in shallow ponds called lagoons and allowed to stand there. The heat of the sun gradually evaporates the water completely in the shallow ponds, leaving behind the solid salts. This mixture of salts is further purified to obtain common salt. Activity 5. To separate common salt dissolved in water. Things needed: common salt, water, china dish, burner, tripod stand, wire gauze. Method: dissolve a teaspoonful of salt in about 50 milliliter of water taken in a china dish. Place the china dish on the tripod stand. The solution of common salt and water taken in the china dish is heated gently by using a burner. Observation: the water present in the salt solution evaporates to form steam. When all the water present in the solution of common salt and water gets evaporated, common salt is left behind in the china dish as a solid. Condensation. This method is used to obtain a liquid from its solution. We can get water from salt solution by this process. The process of changing vapor into its liquid state on cooling is called condensation. Activity 6. To separate water from a mixture of salt solution. Things needed: common salt, water, aluminium kettle, frying pan, beaker, gas burner, tripod stand, wire gauze, ice cubes. Method: dissolve about 20 gram of common salt in water to obtain a common salt solution. Pour the salt solution in the aluminium kettle and put the lid on. Place the kettle on the tripod stand. Also, place the gas burner below the tripod stand. Light the burner. Heat the kettle for some time. Steam comes out from the spout of the kettle. Take a frying pan with some ice cubes in it. Hold the frying pan in a slanting position, just above the spout of the kettle. We observe that when the steam comes in contact with the frying pan cooled with ice, it condenses to form droplets of water on the underside of the frying pan. These droplets trickle down on the underside of the frying pan and then start falling down. Collect these droplets of water in a glass beaker and taste it. It does not taste salty. The water so collected is called distilled water. Separation of mixtures by using more than one method. A mixture that has only two components can be separated by a single method. On the other hand, a mixture that has more than two components can be separated into individual components by a combination of methods of separation. These methods are applied one after another. Let us consider some examples. Separation of iron filings, ammonium chloride and sand mixture. To separate a mixture of iron filings, chalk powder and common salt into individual components.
Solvent. Water is considered as a solvent. What is a solvent? Solvent means what? That the substance which dissolve in water are said to be soluble in water. कि जो substance पानी में dissolve हो जाते हैं, they are called soluble. Whereas the substance which do not dissolve in water are said insoluble in water. For example, salt is soluble in water, whereas sand is insoluble in water. So for this detailed explanation, I will show you in video.
Water as a solvent. Water can dissolve many kinds of substances like sugar and salt. When we dissolve a substance in water, a solution is formed. Activity 8. Can water dissolve any amount of a substance? Things needed: a beaker, some common salt, spoon. Method: take a beaker and put 100 ml of water into it. Add 1 teaspoonful of salt to this water and stir it with a spoon until the salt dissolves in it. Go on adding more and more salt in water with constant stirring to dissolve it. Observation: after adding a number of spoonfuls of salt, we observe that some salt is left undissolved at the bottom of the beaker. This means that no more salt can be dissolved in the amount of water you have taken. The solution is now said to be saturated. Conclusion: water can dissolve any substance only up to a limit. In the above activity, we have obtained a saturated solution of salt in water. A solution in which no more substance can be dissolved at a given temperature is called a saturated solution. Solubility. Different substances dissolve to different extents in water at a given temperature. For example, 204 grams of sugar can be made to dissolve in 100 grams of water at room temperature, whereas only 36 grams of salt can be made to dissolve in 100 grams of water at room temperature. In other words, sugar dissolves to a greater extent than common salt. The extent of dissolution of any substance is described in terms of solubility. The maximum amount of a substance that can be dissolved in 100 gram of water at a given temperature is called its solubility in water. Solubility of some common substances at 20 degrees Celsius is given below. Substance, solubility in water. Sugar, 204 grams. Common salt, 36 grams. Potassium nitrate, 32 grams. Copper sulfate, 21 grams. Activity 9. To prepare a saturated solution of sugar at room temperature and observe the effect of temperature on the solubility of the sugar in water. Things needed: sugar, beaker, spoon, burner. Method: take 100 gram of water in a beaker. Add a small quantity of sugar into the water. Sugar dissolves in water on stirring with a spoon. Keep on dissolving more and more sugar in the water with constant stirring until no more sugar dissolves. You find that some sugar is left undissolved at the bottom of the beaker. You have obtained a saturated solution of sugar. Now, heat the beaker containing the saturated sugar solution. What do you observe? The undissolved sugar at the bottom of the beaker gets dissolved. This shows that at higher temperature, more sugar gets dissolved. Now, let this hot solution cool. What do you observe? The sugar settles at the bottom of the beaker again. This shows that at low temperature, less sugar dissolves in water. Conclusion: heating of a saturated solution of any substance increases the solubility of the substance. If the saturated solution of a substance is cooled to a lower temperature, the solubility of the substance decreases and some of the dissolved substance separates in the form of crystals.
So lastly, you all have understood the chapter well, I hope so. What are the topics which we have studied? That is a mixture or components. For that we have also studied needs for separation of substance in a mixture. Which are the methods of separation? Separation of solid substance from a mixture, separation of insoluble solid from a liquid, separation of soluble solid from a mixture, separation of liquid from a mixture, separation of immiscible liquid from a mixture, and separation of mixture by using more than one method. Lastly, we have also studied water as a solvent, and the last topic we have studied, that is a solution. I hope you all have understood, seen video carefully and understood. Thank you students. Thank you very much.